Hello. Um, I wanted to make this video for myself um, because, in many ways, I feel misunderstood. Um, I feel a tendency to blame myself, um, and I feel primarily lost kind of in this world. So I have a tendency to be avoidant. I have a tendency to be anxious. Um, in the West, I'm probably projected as somebody who is weak, who doesn't try hard enough, who isn't strong enough, and consequentially, I'm just showing the truth of my character and my being in this world as quote unquote the loser of reality. In another sense, if we think from an ideological lens, um, I very much believe this is a product of a socialization of toxic individualism in the West. So what I mean by this is that something that's kind of caused this, and something that I would see regularly would be sort of this affective atmosphere, this feeling that in participation in the group dynamic, say with others, I've always felt this uncomfortable atmosphere of competitiveness, an uncomfortable atmosphere of quantification, and this atmosphere that you're only as good as, your resume, or you're only as good as your achievements in life. So it's the hyper obsession with achievement culture and careerism, hyper obsession with the amount of knowledge that you carry and your capacity to articulate your experience or your achievements in a way that shows your superiority amongst the people around you. So yeah, I as a means of context, I was at a bar last night. And this is also why I really don't enjoy bar culture. It's a space to express oneself, but it's also entrenched in ideology in the sense that appearances are priority. So people become kind of a box or an object in a space, especially as music becomes louder and things, we want things streamlined and easy to understand. And even I'm not saying I'm not outside of this dynamic, as I simplify and objectify others into something that makes sense to me, but rather it's sort of, anyways, I met this guy, and I'm just trying to be friendly and trying to get a sense of who people are, I suppose, beyond the idea constructed through my experience of what they might mean to me. So I try to work through the stereotypes I've cultivated about what a person is based off of the sort of cues or social cues of what this person makes up to me. Say, a interesting person, or a foreigner, or a Russian, or whatever constructs are making up sort of my effective understanding of how to engage with this human being. So I'm interested in disrupting what it means to understand something. Anyway, so I met this guy. I was like, okay. My first interpretation of him was arrogance, and I usually try to avoid the arrogant type because I have a sense that appearances are priority around these types. It's just I don't know. Sometimes I get mixed up in what arrogance in comparison with confidence means, but you can kind of get a sense on how they hold their attention in a space and what they pay attention to. And it's often socially acceptable forms of value in appearances that they'll pay attention to the beautiful one, the symmetrical one, and they might hold a lot of value in that, in their own beauty or symmetry, or pride in their achievements. So anyways, I was okay, whatever, I get a feeling that this person is like this. And so as the conversation went on, I felt, okay, I'm seeing connection to a human being here. This person seems like a real person, and they're willing to share a sense of who, authentic part of who they are. Anyways, as things went along, they started to say things like, I just let some people say I'm mean. And I was like, okay. And then I told him, a vulnerable story about a relationship that disappointed me. And he's like, it sounds like you should probably be more self-reliant. And it's not that people are bad or people are, transactional, but rather you need to not rely on others, even when your safety is at risk. So I was like, okay, this person is now kind of terrible. And then he started to go into appearances and started to disrespect people, being like, thank God I'm beautiful and the others are ugly, etc. And I was just like, okay, conversation over. This is another troll, in a way. So I just ended that conversation. He was attempting to console me, and I didn't even know what to do in that sense. Console me. He was like, yeah, I don't know what happened in that moment, and I just want to say, are you okay? And I was like, I'm sorry, but I don't actually know you. I mean, maybe it was cold on my part. It was cold on my part to say to him, I don't know you. But this is not the type of person or the type of character that I think is healthy in any way in order to survive in this world. So anyway, I just ignored him. I was just like, no, I'm not engaging with people who, give toxic advice and look at people like objects, pure objects of value. So anyways, yeah, I think this just goes into how I struggle with relationships. Particularly, I struggle with a feeling that everything is a competition, and that authenticity, and even what is authenticity? Zizek would say, and even Krishnamurti, even many relatively well-known thinkers would argue that there is no authenticity. There is no core to call upon for finding a true sense of who you are. So even the attempt to look into something further than surface level is a failure that won't get you anywhere. So authenticity isn't something that might even exist, or it doesn't exist. We simply come from the void or the lack of reality. So we might not even be looking for something that, because it never was there to exist in the first place. So anyway, I've struggled with relationships in the sense that I've always felt this surface level ideological framework kind of permeating through a person's character, or many people's character. And I think this is also my own tendency to withdraw from the world in many ways, is because it always felt like people were cruel, they were competitive, they had a tendency to bully each other. And I'm not saying I have not seen these tendencies. I try to reflect on them and recognize my sort of power in disrespecting. But it does create a sort of ennui or a disgust about social worlds, social relationships, and actually feeling belonging. And belonging is something that I've been really curious about, because I just don't feel I ever, ever find belonging outside of people who carry mental illness, where they have never felt belonging because they have always been incapable of being a part of something collective that made sense in a normative way. So autism, ADHD, um, disability. Usually, the people that I could see something like authenticity or belonging was with people who were socially rejected from this world, because they weren't stuck in the repetitions of ideology and power, as if the most of us are. So I just wanted to kind of share this struggle through navigating what I define kind of as toxic individualism, and my challenge building relationships in this world where it just doesn't feel like people are themselves, or they struggle to be themselves or to perform kindness. Yeah. So, anyways, thanks.